Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. I am Patrick Brett, the Director of the College and Career Center. We're here tonight to present College Application Night to the Class of 2020. Before we start, I want to introduce the Home Office F40, which is the senior home office this year. Our three counselors, we have Ms. Jennifer Flacco, Dr. Nicole Yetter, and Mr. Sam Feeney. And we have our home office assistant principals, Ms. Amy Lynn and Mr. Matt Edwards. And if you have any issues during the school year that doesn't pertain to college and career, please go see them, as they are your home base. You guys know this is 3 years running, so hopefully you know where it is and you've been there, and you can make sure that you go down here and use them as a support. Thank you so much for coming tonight. We know that this is a very scary time. You've gotten here, your children are 16, 17, 18 years old. They're moving on to the next phase of life, and it can get very strenuous, and it gets tough to realize that they're going on to college. I will be there eventually, not for another 13, 14 years, but I hopefully will know what you're doing, what you're feeling in a couple of years. So let's get started. First question: how many parents here are going to college with their child next year? Oh, there's a couple hands. That's pretty weird. All right, I'm sorry for those students whose parents raised their hands. So, you realize, students, children, 16, 17, 18-year-old seniors, this is your thing. This is not your parents' thing. You need to be the driver. You need to be in the driver's seat. You need to be leading this. You need to be coming down to the College and Career Center. You need to be emailing myself or your counselor, not your parents. Nothing against you, parents, but you are not going to college next year. You've already gone through that phase of life. Whether you went to college or not, you've already gone through that phase of life, and it is your child's turn. So, children, make sure that you are the drivers. You are the ones who are leading this, okay? Before I go any further, I did forget one person who's extremely important. The transcript secretary, who in the morning is in the College and Career Center until 11, and from 12 to 3:15 is in the transcript office. Mrs. Borchers, if you give her any trouble, you'll have to talk with me. I know I'm not very, I don't have a huge stature, but I have a big bite. So, I know that things get very stressful, and sometimes you take it out on people. Take it out on me, please. Do not take it out on her. Okay? All right. So we got a couple things that we're going to do before we get with the slides. You need to understand that our slide clicker isn't working. So, Mr. Peter Vanna White Nicholson, our principal, is going to be hitting the slides for us. So if you would, Mr. Nicholson, please go to the next slide. Thank you, sir. All right, this is what we're going to talk about. The types of admissions, the NCAA eligibility, that's for a select few, but that's down the road. College application, we'll talk about Naviance, different things that are very, very important to what you have to do in the next 6 to 8 months. Fair? All right. Mr. Nicholson, please. Thank you. All right, where should you be right now? You should have researched and visited colleges. If you haven't done that, that's okay. You can still get to do that, but you need to understand that you're getting towards the end of the crunch line. After you've researched and visited colleges, make sure that you narrow a list down to 3 to 7 schools. Our record here at North Penn High School for schools applied to is 31. It's been hit twice. Please do not do that. Please, I beg you. If you do that, we're going to have a conversation. You need to talk to 2 teachers to write letters of recommendation. Those 2 teachers should not go back any further than 9th grade. We hope that you stay in the building, but if you have to go to 9th grade, that's fine. But couple years back, I got a letter of rec from a 5th grade teacher. That's 7 years difference. I'm a different person from last year, let alone 7 years ago. Please try to stay 2 to 3 years prior, and try not to use a teacher from this year unless you had that teacher previously. If you're struggling, come down, talk to me, we'll figure it out. You want to request teacher letters of rec, which we'll talk about down the road, and college costs with your family. That's extremely, extremely important. Colleges are so expensive right now, so expensive. That has to be a conversation. If you're not talking to your family about schools and the cost of the schools, you need to do that. Unless you have all the money in the world, you need to have these conversations, because when you get to be 30, 35, and you're paying $700 to $1,000 a month in student loans, you're going to look back and say, why did I do that? So honestly, have those conversations, okay? We do have a financial aid night coming up. Bless you. We do have a financial aid night coming up November 1st, and October 1st, sorry. And we'll talk about that more, but make sure that it's a conversation with the family, okay? And finally, sign up if you have to. Sign up for the SAT or ACT if needed. Mr. Nicholson, thank you. It's not too late. As I said it before, please do not stress right now. Society puts so much stress on this. Social media puts so much stress on this. Do not stress. This is supposed to be fun. I know it doesn't seem like that. I know by the time we're done in March, when you're deciding schools, you're going to say that wasn't fun. But it's supposed to be, and I'm going to try to help you make it as fun as possible. All right, because it is your future, and it's what we want you to do down the road. How should I use Naviance as a senior? Look, you want to make sure that you're on there. You are putting in your colleges you're applying to. You're requesting transcripts. You're requesting letters of recommendation. If you need to, there are career assessments and strength assessments you can do if you haven't figured out what you want to do yet. All right, so make sure that you're utilizing Naviance. If you need your Naviance password reset, shoot me an email. It takes me 10 seconds. So this is the first page of Naviance. I just wanted everybody to see that. For those who haven't logged in the past 2 years, or haven't listened to me or seen me on nighttime, which I will be on Thursday, going over this again. But I wanted everybody to see what this looks like so that you have an idea. All right, so if you scroll down the first page of Naviance, and the clicker that doesn't work usually has a laser pointer that I wanted to show. But on this right side of the screen, your right, my left, is what's new, and those are schools that are coming to North Penn High School. So for instance, today, Elon came at 11 a.m., Lock Haven also came at 11, and the University of Maryland, Baltimore County came at 12. If you were to log on and go to Show More, you would see over 175 schools that are coming to North Penn High School. If you click Show More, hit More Info, and the top right-hand corner, hit Register, you can register to come to the visit. It would most likely be in the College and Career Center, sitting down with a college rep from that school, having a one-on-one, 1 to 3, 1 to 8 conversation. The most important thing about that, most private schools track your demonstrated interest, meaning that if I go to a visit at North Penn High School as a student, and Mr. Feeney does not, and we have the same exact stats, mine are much higher than his, but that's a clear joke. But if we have the same exact stats and we're going up against each other at the end, and we're both in the bubble, they're going to say, Patrick Brett took the time to come out of school and take a look at us and talk to us and follow it up with an email. Whereas Sam Feeney didn't. He didn't show his demonstrated interest. So please, sign up for these events. These colleges want to see you. They know how big we are. They know how great of students we have, how strong of students we have, and they want to bring their schools to you guys so you guys can come, or at least get a chance to see what else is out there than just what your friends are applying to. So if you see a school you're interested in, click more info, click register, use that as your pass, and then come on down to the College and Career Center. All right, so back up to the front page of Naviance, you're going to hit colleges I'm applying to, which is how you are going to add your schools to Naviance to know how you're going to apply. Once you do that, it'll come up as your college I'm applying to section or page, and you'll notice in the right-hand corner there's a plus sign that's kind of pinkish, red, whatever you want to call it. You're going to hit that plus sign, and then you can fill out the school's names. You start typing into a box, and it just adds the schools. You could type in PENN, and Penn State comes up. A lot of other schools may come up, but that specific school will come up. You'll notice up here, you'll have Bloomsburg University, and there's a screen without anything in it. That screen is blank, meaning you have to apply to Bloomsburg on their actual website. Sometimes you'll see a CA on there, meaning Common App, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But that also would be there. Use Naviance as the GPS. Use it as a sense of, okay, this is where I have to go. I have to go to this site to apply. I have to go to that site to apply. And make sure, please, make sure you put the right one. A couple years back, because some schools have choices. You could apply to the school using their website or Common App. A couple years back, we had a student who applied in, I want to say, October, November, to a certain local public school, used Common App, told us the student used direct to the institution. We sent it the way it said in Naviance. The school never got it because they were looking for it in the way he actually applied. When a school like the school I'm talking about gets 40,000 applications for a freshman class, they can't be looking all over the place for your stuff. They look in one spot because that's how you applied. Please make sure you're doing things the right way and you're putting things, marking things the correct way. If you have any questions, please, 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 please stop down at the College and Career Center. All right, the FERPA, besides being the worst acronym of all time, it stands for Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. What that means is that students have a right to view all of their educational records from K through today at any time. They are your records. We house them, but they're yours. That includes letters of recommendation. So if you were to ask a teacher to write a letter of recommendation, technically, by law, you have the right to see that letter of recommendation. The reason why I bring it up here is because on the Common App, they're going to ask you, do you waive your right? Meaning, the teacher's going to write the letter of recommendation, send it right to the school, so that it's a 100% accurate portrayal from the teacher about you to the school. There's also an answer that says, no, I do not waive my right. I want to see the letter of recommendation. That's fine. That is your right. There are two things that are hang-ups there. The colleges see your response. So if I'm a college and I see that Sam Feeney didn't waive his right and he had to see his letter of rec, I say, why? Why did he need to see his letter of recommendation? What's going on? Did he manipulate it at all? Did he say to the counselor or the teacher, you know what I said, 25 hours of community service, can you bump that up to like 75 or 100? So, and that stuff's happened in the past. So make sure that I can't tell you what to do, but I recommend that you waive your right. Also, teachers see your response. So a teacher can say, I'm not going to write that letter. I'm not putting anything bad about you, but I want to make sure that I can be brutally honest with the school about you, and I don't want to hurt your feelings. If there's something in there that says, our first time together, this student may have struggled, but he or she really grew over the past X amount of years or class periods. So again, recommend that you waive your right. And at this point in time, we're going to go over the college application, and I will pass it on to Mrs. Jennifer Flacco.
Good evening. So I wanted to talk to you about the parts of the application. So the application requires the application itself, which can be found on the college website, the Common App, or the Coalition app. It includes your high school transcript, your test scores, and you really want to check your school's requirements because some schools are test optional. It'll require letters of recommendation from your teacher, from your counselor, or a secondary school report. And again, you do want to check the requirements of the college because they may require additional forms. Oh, sorry. Thank you. So where to apply? So the common application, that is where students can go on and apply to multiple schools at once. There's about 600 schools that participate. Your application fee would be paid through the common application, and students need to link their application with their Naviance account in order to have letters of recommendation and their transcripts sent. There is the coalition application, which is a new application. There are about 90 participating schools, and students must indicate in Naviance that they are using the coalition application because they can go on and add additional information via a digital locker, and colleges will see that. And then there is the individual college application, which will be found on the college website. So what you will need, students will need their name, their address, their email, their social security number, their GPA, their class rank, test scores. Students are going to report these and they will be unofficial. The official will come through as the transcript and the score center. And just a reminder, we ask that students use their full name as it's listed on the transcript. And again, to note somewhere where they're keeping their username and their passwords, in the notes section of their cell phone is a great place. And the types of admissions. So there is rolling admissions where there aren't any deadlines. Usually a decision comes back in about 8 to 12 weeks. There is regular decision, which does have a specific deadline. It's typically in January, where decisions are usually heard of in May. Then there's early action. Early action also has a specific deadline. It's usually in November. Decisions are made around December. It is non-binding, but there is a restrictive early action where students could not apply to another school via early action or early decision. And then there is finally early decision, which also has a specific date around November, which decisions are made in December, but that is binding. And when should you apply? So now, anytime up to November. We feel before Thanksgiving. Many colleges that have specific applications will be available after September 1st. And students are welcome with any support or help they need to go to the College and Career Center with Mr. Brett. They can go during lunch study, during study halls, during their lunch, or no school period 1 or no school period 8. And I'd like now to introduce Dr. Yetter.
It's okay. Good evening. Thanks, everyone, for coming out. I'm going to go over a couple things, a couple slides here. I'm going to talk about the transcript, and I'm actually going to talk about what are the next steps moving forward to really start this application process. So I want to direct your attention to the transcript right here. On the transcript, high school for us starts in 9th grade. So on the transcript, and we'll have the next slide that I'll show you in just a minute, we'll have a much closer view. But on your transcripts, we'll read grades 9, 10, 11. That is where we calculate your GPA and class rank. That'll be from the end of junior year, as well as your current classes will be listed on the transcript. One thing to note about that, when we do collate these and put them together, get them ready to load, if at some point throughout the year you do make a change in your schedule, that does become your responsibility to self-report if it's something that makes an impact in your schedule. So for example, if you were taking some AP or honors courses that were kind of leading into your major, you've since changed those and you're not taking those classes any longer, and that was something that the college was part of your admissions, that will be something that you do have to consider go ahead and reporting. Some other things that will be on here will be your GPA and class rank. I'll explain the unweighted and weighted GPA. That's always a big question that we get, as well as things that are not on the transcript. Some important things to note, at the bottom of the transcript, we do not list any clubs, activities. That is something that you will self-report through Common App or through the application yourself. Next slide, please. So here is what a typical high school transcript would look like. We do break it out by the class. We do note on there if it's an honors level course. We do not note on there if it's a 5.0 or a 4.0 level class. We only note if it is honors or at the AP level. So as you'll see there, we start in 9th grade. One question that typically gets asked of us, well, what if I already took a language in 8th grade and that's not listed on there? Schools know that if by year number 2, you're in Spanish 2, you've already taken the first year. So no need to note that, okay? Then you'll have your 10th grade year, your 11th grade year, and then, like I mentioned, your current class schedule for your senior year. Another reason why we list that on there, number one, you will self-report that, and they do want to know what you're taking. But number two, halfway through the school year, we will send your schools a mid-year report. So you're not off the hook when you finish hitting submit for all your applications. We will send a mid-year report. Some schools do count on that to make a decision. So it's something to be very mindful of. Mr. Nicholson, if we could just change it, I think it'll, okay, perfect. So here's a close-up just to see there for an 11th grade student. You'll also see at that time how many credits were earned, as well as what the GPA was for that year. And the next one. So currently, we currently report a weighted and welcome everyone. What just let out? Something. Thanks for coming. Okay, so we do the weighted, that's on a 6.0 scale. So the highest GPA that you can currently earn would be someone who takes all AP courses. It's typically a 6.5. You could really earn yourself a 6.8. This is going to sound so much mumble jumble if you got straight A's. We base it on a 6.0 scale. Then we do a unweighted GPA, which most of us are familiar with, on a 4.0 scale, A, B, C, and so forth. So we report both. Schools, they make their own decisions what they do with our GPA. We base our GPA and class rank. Our GPA is based off of our 5 majors. You can see that in the program of studies we've talked about before. Some of those classes are not up for exclusion. But please note that some of our schools take our transcript. They recalculate the entire GPA based on their criteria. They may take it and do every single course, including health, PE, minors. That's their decision to do that. So we give them ours, and then they do what they want with it. So that's why we give them both. And then you'll see the class rank. The class rank currently, the class size that we're locked in is 1016. That's how many students are in the class. Next slide, thank you. So this is so important, students, of what you need to do moving forward. So starting the week of September 16th, this is when this will be ready for you to go. In this week coming up, you're here tonight. Thursday will be a nighttime hearing specifically for all of you and for all the students who are not present tonight about this college process. In that time, Mr. Brett, alongside with Mrs. Borchers, will spend time uploading all of your transcripts up into Naviance to get ready to go. Starting the following week on the 16th, that is when you will obtain this pink form. We've changed this pink form. Some of you parents have seen this pink form over the years with other children that you've had. We've updated this form. We've simplified this form, much more user-friendly. It's only one page, and we're really happy with it. So things you need to, before you even walk into Mrs. Borchers to request your transcript, number one, you need to have in Naviance selected your schools. It's very premature to want your transcript sent if you haven't put any schools in yet. So that's number one, okay? Number two, you need to, in Naviance, check the box that says send transcripts. If you don't check that box, we won't know to send them. So you pick the schools you're applying to, then you go in and do that. You fill out this form. On this form will be your name, your full name. Okay, really important. Your student ID number is also critical, okay, just so we don't have any confusion on who you are. Then you'll go ahead and you'll list your schools. You will note on there for us if it's a Common App school or not. If it is, we check yes. If it's not, it's a no. Then you will come in. During the morning, Mrs. Borchers will be in the College and Career Center, and in the afternoon, she'll be right here. You bring that form. It's $2 a transcript. unless you attended the college boot camp. So for any of those of you who've already attended the college boot camp, you've already gone ahead and submitted your funds for that. No extra money's needed. Excuse me, and then lastly, we ask about 2 weeks for processing. Okay, so this way we can go ahead, because then it gets passed on to either myself, Mr. Feeney, or Mrs. Flacco. That's when we have to start filling out all the paperwork. And depending on the schools that you're applying to, some of the paperwork is a lot quicker than others. And we also then, in turn, write you letters of recommendation. So the process takes a little time, so we do ask for about 2 weeks with that. The turnaround time can easily be a lot quicker. It all just depends on how many we kind of get in. Next slide, please. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Mr. Feeney, who will continue on.
All right, thank you and welcome. I'm pleased that you're able to come out and get this information and hopefully be able to capture kind of how all these pieces are working together. I'm going to kick off, it's kind of fitting to end the transcript section with this discussion of the SRAR, which actually is a worse acronym than the FERPA. Anyway. So the self-reported academic report, record, is what it allows students to do is if you don't have access to a transcript or these schools are saying, we don't need to see your transcript right now, just tell us what you got. Once you get in, then we're going to need the official transcript, okay? So to basically prove that what you told us was true, okay? So it definitely pays to report these things accurately. Schools up there as well as, is Penn State's on there? Right, and then Temple as well. Temple, just to add layers to this, and what Mrs. Flacco said is really what you need to do. Make sure you're just being very, very aware of what each school needs. Temple has their own SRAR. Why not? So just being aware. If you have, I always recommend like a spreadsheet, being a checklist of what deadlines are, what each school needs, and making sure you're shifting to, and obviously, as Mr. Brett said to begin, hopefully your child is shifting to, some ownership over this, extreme ownership even. But this for students, especially you're managing, when are my letters of recommendation going out? When are my transcripts going out, et cetera? It really is a project management problem because a lot of these moving parts, you just need to be tracking as they go. Many of them are more or less ready to go or they've already been decided. But you just need to be aware of what each college is asking for because that's really the end of the day. We're trying to make sure that their requirements are met. All right, so next slide, please, sir. Test scores. This is a big one. Recognize that the test scores are sent through the testing bodies themselves, the ACT, the SAT, through College Board. They are not sent by us, okay? It's likely that your scores are somewhere in Navient, but that does not mean that we're reporting them for you. So make sure that's another subset of this whole process you need to make sure you have is I'm making sure that we're sending the transcript here at North Penn. I'm making sure that College Board is sending my scores as we go. If you have yet to take a test, if there's a test remaining for you, perhaps you're eyeing a merit scholarship for the SAT or the ACT, which you can take those through March or April pretty much. You get 4 free score sends for every test that you sign up for, okay? But if that test is already, let's say you took the August 26th test and you wanted to send out some scores to some schools, you're gonna have to go in and designate those and pay for those to go out, just so you're aware, and that's per school. So, let's go back to the kid who's sending 31 college applications. That adds up. So just be aware of that through that process. Is that around that stuff? Okay. Good. All right, so just be aware. The test, as I said, for some of you might think, it's too late. Going back to that slide of college, this whole process, depending on where you're applying, is, you're still right up with this. If you haven't taken the SAT yet, you haven't taken the ACT yet, there's still plenty of time to do that. Some of the dates are up there. They're on the webpage. I think a really good resource as well is fairtest.org, FAIRTEST, to see if your school even requires that you take the SAT or the ACT. Just be aware you've got some test option choices as well there. So next slide, please. Letters of rec. Mr. Brett mentioned this before. Letters of recommendation. I really think this is kind of an art and a science. It's likely many of you or as the students or many of your children have requested their letters of recommendation already. We're going to take this in 2 different parts. One is that teacher letter of recommendation. The first time the person you'd like to have write your letter of recommendation for you, the first time they find out about this request should not be when the automatic email from Navient shows up in their inbox and says, hey, so-and-so has requested a letter of recommendation from you. They should know much sooner, in person if possible, and with some sort of a conversation. So that's kind of the art side of this. If you are asking someone to do something as a favor for you, you need to be able to do that in the proper way, okay? So students, ask your folks what a proper way to do is, all right? And then follow it up with a thank you card, handwritten, would be very nice. All right, so letters of recommendation, just be aware of what we're looking for, who we're looking for in this. The letters of recommendation and Common App and Navient's, that will all link up. Those will all go through Navient's. Your teachers can write them, upload them, and they're off and running. And again, the idea with the FERPA sign-off, with the waiving the right to view it, is it just in a somewhat litigious society, a teacher who doesn't want to have somebody come back and say, well, if you would have written a better letter, I would have gotten in, right? That's the kind of protection we're offering teachers by waiving that FERPA right. All right, so next slide, please, sir. Teacher letters of recommendation. I just did that stuff. Next slide, please. All right, counselor letters of recommendation. A slightly different approach, okay? This part here is more or less part of our process automatically and won't require much on your end. The biggest point that I want to emphasize here that is for both teachers and for counselors is that there needs to be an academic resume. There needs to be some sort of communication to the teacher or the counselor of, here's, you've seen my transcript, you have access to that, or for the teacher, you saw the work that I did in my English class, but here's kind of rounding out me, okay? What I really enjoy about the letter of recommendation and the essay as you're writing is they're kind of the last two variables outside of a standardized test that you can still influence. Okay, now I'm not recommending you pay your teacher to write your letter of recommendation, but there's still some things to do to present yourself in a way that personalizes you. Okay, in a depending, especially on the schools you're applying to, there are still many schools that want to know who you are as a person, right? And that does start with, as Mr. Brett said, meeting the college rep. The reps who visit, the reps who are going to be here at the PACAC Fair on the 10th, they're very likely the people who are going to be reading your essay, reviewing your transcript. It's very important for them to know who you are and to say, well, I want to go to school where I'm more than just a number. Start acting like more than just a number. Okay, that letter of recommendation, what your teacher can provide is really important. And that academic resume, as an English teacher and then as a school counselor, I've set myself up to write a letter of recommendation for a student, and then I look at the resume and I think, oh my word, I had no idea all this other stuff was going on. Your accomplishments in my class or the things I see in your transcript are that much more impressive. That also really your academic resume can reflect that you really do have a sense of a purpose or a sense of perhaps a career path, and it should be consistent when you're doing your academic resume that the things that you do, you're about what you're about. The things that you do, you're all kind of heading in the same direction. Okay, we had the activities fair this morning. Now's not the time to sign up for 30 activities, right? They don't want breadth, they want depth. They want intensity and intentionality. So that's what we're looking for from that. Counselor letters of rec, as I was saying, we know this right away. We know this automatically just based on Navient's and the college's requirements. So there's no need to go to your counselor and ask for the teacher or ask for the letter of recommendation other than to make sure that that resume is in place. Okay, so we get notified by Common App especially, but the Navient school, in Navient's we can see the schools that are asking for the counselor letter of recommendation. So we'll write those, we'll include those as part of that transcript request. Okay, so no need to make that formal request separately. Teachers, yes, definitely, Candy, etc. All right, next please. All right, the essay. As I was saying, this is one of the last moments for you to kind of shine and differentiate yourself. If you and Mr. Brett have the exact same scores, and you write a stellar essay and he writes an essay that he's more typically going to write, that's probably going to give you an advantage, right? He's a very fluent writer. But that's probably going to give you an advantage. But I'll tell you now, it won't be the thing that really compensates for lousy marks at a school where you're really not a good fit, okay? Be aware of the role that essay plays. one thing that we have tried to do is more and more hear from college admissions representatives, to be able to hear from people who are reading these. A really great resource I'll tell you right now, if you're interested in that essay and you think that might be a difference maker for you, Johns Hopkins every year publishes essays that worked. You just Google essays that worked. It's really pretty interesting. They have about 6 to 8 essays from their students, and the counselor actually writes in a little section for the kid writes, and the counselor, the admissions rep, writes in and says, this is why I really like this person's essay. You start to get a little bit behind the curtain of the mystique that goes into all these college admissions process decisions. So that's the essay. You may have that as an assignment in your English class. Be aware, you're looking for grammar. Your teacher probably wasn't previously a college admissions representative. No knock on them. They're going to hammer the grammar part's going to be great. All those types of things. Make sure there's still an element of where you're coming through on that. So don't write it like an English paper, even if you're writing for English class. Write it in a way that personalizes you. Okay, next slide, please. Do you want this one? All right, so here's the steps. College apps. Starting Monday, you're going to get that release of records form, okay? That's going to, for us, start those dominoes going down. But make sure before you hand Mrs. Borcher, she's going to check, before you hand her that pink form, that release of records form, she's going to check that you've asked for the transcript in Naviance under colleges I'm applying to. Okay, so that's got to be there in order for us to be able to do those steps. And then make sure you're also being mindful of any of the other pieces that they're asking for, that you're getting it, retrieving it from wherever it can be sent, for instance, ACT and College Board. And then along the way, if there are questions about maybe what a college is looking for when they say this, whatever it might be, you're welcome to connect with your counselors, connect with Mr. Brett along the way. The thing that I would ask you to be patient about is the timeline, especially Monday, when it all starts, that 2-week deadline. And as we approach other deadlines, for instance, the first popular EDEA, early action, early decision deadline is November 1, okay? I really recommend that if you're gunning for a November 1 submission, that you honor that 2-week transcript request and get that in by October 15th or whatever. So that way you're not putting it in October 29th and then, emailing me on October 30th, hey, is it finished yet? Well, there's a good chance that you're going to be backlogged a little bit. So be aware of those more popular deadlines and make sure that you're ready to go. Is Penn State still November 30th? Yeah, priority deadline. Penn State's a rolling admission school. Their priority deadline, which is do you want to go to main campus, is November 30th. So be aware of some of these less well-known deadlines that are just you just got to dig a little bit on those sites. And give us the time that we need to be able to present all this stuff to you. All right. Thanks very much. Mr. Brett is going to wrap up.
Thank you. I noticed you guys didn't clap when Mr. Feeney got up. I appreciate that. Thank you. Just want to talk about a couple more things before I open it up to questions, general questions. NCAA, for any students who want to participate in athletics after high school, the NCAA requires that you register on their website. It's a $95 fee. They require that you meet certain standards with GPA, SAT, or ACT. Once you register on their website, and it's a different requirement for Division I, Division II, and then Division III does not really have a requirement. It's more like the Wild Wild West. If you get into the school, you can play. So if you register, please come down and see me so that I can send your transcript to the NCAA so we can start fulfilling the requirements that are needed. Okay, next slide, please. Thank you. Couple very important upcoming dates. Back to school night. It could be your last one, parents. Could be. I hear some applause, that's great. So make sure that if you get a chance to come out to see the senior teachers, that would be great. October 1, as I mentioned earlier, is our financial aid night. October 6th is the last day to register for the November 4 SAT. October 7th is our FAFSA completion night. So a little bit after our financial aid night, what will happen is FEA, which is the Pennsylvania financial aid organization, they'll come in and they will help us and help you guys register or fill out the FAFSA, any questions you may have. And it's a great night I'll send out an email about it with a registration because we have to cap it with a certain amount of numbers. And then finally, October 10th is the Montgomery County PACAC Fair. Over 175 schools will be here. Talk about demonstrated interest. Almost every single one of those schools will have a little postcard for you to fill out. If you can be here, please go. There are certain schools that you're going to stand in line for a while. Penn State, Pitt, Temple, the big schools, you're going to stand in line. But do me a favor, be patient. Do yourself a favor, be patient. 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. You'll get emails, trust me. There'll be flyers around the school. It is a very important night if you are trying to fill out applications. Maybe you have a question about the application. It's a great time to ask. Even if you know the answer to the question, ask it. Put your name in front of that rep, just like you would do in the College and Career Center for a college visit. All right, Mr. Nicholson, next slide, please. All right, so students, you can come see me, as Mrs. Flacco said, during lunch. No school period 1, no school period 8, lunch study, nighttime on Tuesday and 8B, or after school. Parents, if you would like to meet me with your child, I will not meet with you without your child because, as I said in the very beginning, this is for them. They are in the driver's seat. If you would like to meet with me with your child, typically Wednesdays after school, starting next Thursday, as I say Wednesdays, next Thursday, because we have a half day next Wednesday, starting the 19th, you can schedule appointments 2:15, 3:15, 4:15, or 5:15. Email, call, whatever you have to do. I'll probably respond a little bit better via email. But if you would like to schedule an appointment, just contact me and we'll get you on the books. But we can do that typically Wednesday moving forward. And then our website's up there. We have a Twitter page, I guess. Not that you guys go on Twitter anymore, kids. But, we're here for you. We can provide as much knowledge as we know, but we don't know everything. Mr. Nicholson, could you please hit the next slide? So what we've provided outside on your way out, and some of you may have noticed it when you walked in, we provided additional resources. There are 2 people for each financial aid, test prep, and college essay. I need you to know that we are not promoting any of these certain organizations. We sent emails out to a bunch of different organizations. These happen to be the first 2 of each group that got back to us. So, if you would like to go out and talk to them, you do not have to. Please do not feel obliged to go out and talk to them. But if you would like to go out and talk to some of these people about certain things, please feel free. That's why we brought them in, because we do not know everything. As much as Mr. Feeney thinks he does, we don't. So we brought this in for you guys to go out and get some more knowledge if you need it. Okay? A couple more things, Mr. Feeney. I think there's one more slide. No? Mr. Nicholson, sorry. I made fun of Mr. Feeney too much that I have his name on my mind. Is there one more slide, Mr. Nicholson? That's it. Okay. Very important thing to note real quick before I open it up to general questions. The pink form, it is on the back as you walk out. You may grab it. Note that you cannot turn it in until Monday morning. That means this coming Monday, not yesterday. Secondly, it says 2 weeks. Note that that's 2 weeks of school. If we have off, make it an extra day because we're not here. Or when you guys have off and we don't, we're in class. We're learning. We don't have a lot of time in our offices to get things done. So that's essentially a day out of our office, which we can't get the chance to get your transcripts out or your letters of recommendation out. Okay? Finally, if you have a letter of recommendation from an outside source, not someone in the building, just come down and see me. I'll make sure we figure it out. There's many different avenues we can take. Very easy. Just got to figure out which one's the best for you. All right. I'm going to open it up to a couple questions. They have to be general. If it's specific, please hold off. We'll talk at the end, and we'll go from there. If you have questions now, please feel free to raise your hand, and we'll go through them. Yes, Mrs. Swanson.
The SRAR, is that unique to a school, or when you complete that, for example, in-state?
Yes. Great question. So the SRAR, the question was, is it unique for each specific school? The answer is no. It's very similar to the Common App in the sense of every one of those schools that was up there, if you fill it out once, you can, it doesn't automatically go, but you can send it to all those schools. Great question. Question over there. Get my steps in here.
Asking for a GPA on their website, and they give you like the median, is that their weighted or non-weighted GPA?
So the question was, schools on their website give you a median GPA. Is that their weighted or their non-weighted? Every school is going to take our GPA, our weighted, and turn it into a weighted on their scale. So typically it's a weighted GPA, so they take our 6.0 and turn it into a weighted 4.0. I know it's not exactly an answer, but if you want to shoot me an email, I'll be able to give you a general idea of what yours is. All right, we'll do this last question, then we'll break up, and everybody can come up if you have other questions.
Can a letter of recommendation come from somebody outside of?
Yes. So if you have a letter of rec from outside, just come, have your child come see me, and we'll take care of it. All right, thank you so much. We appreciate it. If you have any questions, you can come down now. It's specific to your child. Thank you.